Beware of wisdom you did not earn. That's what Carl Jung said. It is important to understand that it is easy to acquire information and get wisdom that is real and that is true. However, the level of understanding is different from a person who has acquired wisdom through experience, because you have experienced it and have applied the information that you were able to gather. Your level of understanding has deepened when it comes to a specific topic that you are trying to understand, or whatever it is, whatever experience that you are having, and you are applying the wisdom that you have to that experience. I always say God speaks to you in a language that you understand. And what I mean by that, however you define God, whether God is God or God is the universe or God is ancestors or God, whatever it is, however you want to refer to God as, that is God speaking to you in a language that you understand, a language that would make more sense to you based on your level of comprehension also. And God speaks to you in a level of understanding that you have. When you speak about specific topics to different ages of, like, you see, when you, let's say you want to talk about sex, and you want to talk about sex to a 6-year-old, you wouldn't necessarily talk the same level of intellect with a 6-year-old compared to a 13-year-old, compared to maybe a 21-year-old, a 50-year-old, because their level of understanding is different. And I know that that's how God speaks to you. God will speak to you based on the language that you understand, being the universe, ancestry, whatever else you believe God to be. And then God will continue to speak to you in the level of understanding that you have about Him. He will speak to you in a level of understanding that you can comprehend according to your level of understanding and according to the language that you speak. And when you start comparing different names of God and different ways of going to God, then you are limiting God. You are saying God is supposed to speak in one language, which doesn't make sense. God speaks in all these different languages based on the comprehension of the person who is seeking the understanding and the closeness with God. Which is why it is important to be authentic, because when you are authentic, then you are in tune with the level of understanding and language that God speaks to you specifically. Because now, if you're trying to conform and fall into the social norms, then you learn ways of hearing God based on the community that you have created around you, based on the people that you choose to associate yourself with, and you are not hearing God. And God will speak to you at a church. God will speak to you through the ancestral line. God will speak to you through art, music. God will speak through you even. God will speak through you in all these different ways that God can express Himself, that God can understand self. But the world is too busy trying to sound like everyone, like each other, to speak and look the same. And they are not listening to God in the language that they are supposed to understand Him in. And that makes the world a very sad place, because when you spend time with God and you get to refine the communication that you have with God, and you get to understand deeper things about God, and you get to understand why other people are seeing God in all these different ways, and everything that you need to be able to communicate with God in a way that you understand, in a way that is fruitful to you, is in all those dark places that you are afraid of, the things that scare you, the things that make you nervous. When you go into that shadow, when you go into those things, that's where you find and refine the language that God speaks through you in. And nothing is superior than the other in the way that God speaks. It's still God speaking. We limit God by wanting God to speak the same way, by wanting God to reveal himself to us in the same way. And that's not how God is experiencing himself through you. You are here to be an expression of God, a different expression of God. Why would God want to express himself or experience himself in a millions and millions of people the same way? Because then you can just create one human being and experience himself in that way. But there's so many people because there's a lot of experiences that can be created by being your authentic self, by understanding your authentic voice, by understanding how God is related to you. There's none of these things are better than the other. They're simply just beautiful expressions of God. But people are so afraid of being still. People are afraid of being honest. Honesty requires... honesty is hard. However, honesty refines the language and the voice of God to you. When you hold yourself accountable, when you hold yourself accountable to yourself, when you respect your own boundaries, the boundaries that you do not want other people to cross, you have to respect them first before anybody else can respect them. Because you attract what you are. And if you are seeing something in front of you that disgusts you, if you're seeing something in front of you that you hate, that you do not want to associate yourself with, that is God showing you that there is something within you that you need to go and look at, based on whatever it is that disgusts you is being reflected to you. If it's there, it means it exists within you and you haven't sorted that out. So, man, I think it's important to really identify the language that God speaks to you and spend time with yourself and forget what anybody else is doing. It's none of your business. It is really none of your business. Because if you are taking time listening, watching what somebody else is doing, you are actually paying attention to that. You are creating more of that, and you are taking energy away from creating for your own self. It's not an easy journey, but it is the right one for self-betterment, for self-understanding, for self-purpose. That's how you have an experience with God, however you define God to be. I'm Shadow, and this is Shadow Work.